Hello, and welcome back to another week of the European Tour picks and bets. Coming off a wicked Open Championship. Tom, if you guys can zoom in on his sunburn there, spent the weekend at Royal St. George's, so had a lovely time. Tom, how was your experience?
If I told you that it was the most draining day of my life on Saturday, followed by I don't know if I want to go on Sunday, followed by I had to jack in the shorts for trousers on the Sunday because I was so burnt, you get an idea of how my weekend was. That aside, it was lovely. It was really great to see, as ever, to see the world's best do it. It really felt like, I mean, there was some we didn't really get. It's tough when you're actually at the event. You look at the pins, and they look tough, but you don't really know quite how bad it is. And then you read all the interviews afterwards, and everyone was hammering about his pins. They're diabolical, worst they've ever seen. Blah blah blah. Bobby Mack shoots to 65. Like, just play what you've got, right? There was anyone in the top five, I think, of the leaderboard in ties were all 68, 69s or better. Like, just play the course, man. It's like it had to have some sort of defense. They had rain up into the lead up, perfect weather through the weekend. It wasn't open conditions. That is the only one thing that I'd say not against Colin Morikawa, because you can't take anything away from him, but just I don't know if he'd have been able to put in such a dominating performance when if he'd have been at Troon or St Andrews a bit different. Any one of the tougher ones, Scottish weather, even a bit of wind and rain. So take nothing away from him because it was class. Top iron player. There was so much love for Louis Oosthuizen. I cannot believe how popular that guy is. You think about Jordan Spieth, you think about Brooks Koepka, you think about John Rahm, you think the crowds are just going to disperse to them. I know he was in the final group on both days, but the will for him to win was just extraordinary. I know he deserves it. He's earned that by finishing second in the last two, and God knows how many top threes elsewhere. But I couldn't believe it. You'd think he was British. That's how I would say.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's cool to hear from the grounds, the Louis support, of course. That's a lot of fun with how Morikawa really did deliver every single hole. Pin
Yeah.
high, just starts making every single putt. I do agree, of course, that the weather didn't show up. I do think they tested him very extreme on Saturday, and it was lovely to see what McIntyre pulled together for the weekend. If that's our European Tour guy from what we have been following the last couple of years, made for the Open Championship, still is yet to miss a cut in a major, and now gets a chance at the 3M Open this week, where he can get himself with special temporary membership and really deliver and make himself a full-time PGA Tour member. These are the opportunities these guys really need to take advantage of. The golfer that unfortunately didn't take advantage of the opportunity, and I found myself with a long, hard stare at the mirror back at myself, and Guido Migliozzi bogeying 17 on Friday afternoon after he eagled on the par 5 on 14. Had some tough lineups. Found myself just searching through the Cazoo Open entry list Friday afternoon when everyone else is celebrating, with the Open Championship we have. But I bet you I'm as prepared as anybody for this week. Outside of Gareth Bale, I might be the only other one who's this prepared, Tom. So I'm ready to get into this week at Celtic Manor.
I was waiting for the whole "Hello Darkness, my old friends" to play in the background when Guido missed the cut, because I got a Benny Ann sighting for our guy Phil on Twitter. Couldn't quite get you a Guido one, but it is what it is. I think the run had to come to an end somewhere. We weren't sure, were we, how much Open would have suited him. I think also just going back and forth between the States and Europe, something he's not done before. All these different factors, right? I mean, there was different sides of the draw. There's so much. I mean, we had a couple of guys, didn't we? We picked from the lower half of the DraftKings that showed up really nicely. So pretty happy with that. I think that, McIntyre, we won't go into it too long because they're open, but in terms of your Ryder Cup permutations, I think it's a massive, massive thing that Shane Lowry has got that, automatic spot at the moment, because I think Podrick wants him to be in the team,
yes,
but doesn't want to have to pick him because there's a bit of an Irish bias, always wanting to have him alongside. He's just forced the issue, and now Podrick's kind of got, I think Sergio and Poulter are probably locks. I don't know, but I'd find it very hard to leave both of those out. And then I think it just literally comes down to Rose and McIntyre. I think Podrick's a guy that kind of thinks outside the box, thinks about the long-term future. McIntyre is, not volatile, but he's a guy that can go and win you a match and lose your match very quickly, whereas Rose, I think, is very steady and will just grind it out. So it just depends what you want. if he wants the experience to go out over to an away game, then that might be it, and that might work against Bob. But he's doing enough. He just needs probably another. I think he needs to contend really before the Ryder Cup comes along to really secure his spot.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think he's a perfect course fit for Whistling Straits. You know, the way he drives the ball, I think it's really exciting that he, now has a chance that captain pick with Victor Perez, dropping out of qualifications. I absolutely agree that does make a big opportunity for one of these selections. And Bob withdrawing and playing at the 3M, transitioning us into the Celtic Manor and the Cazoo Open, it does make a big difference on the odds board. Yeah. If we look at the Cazoo Open here, if we start by looking at the course, we saw this played twice last year. We saw the Celtic Classic and then the Wales Open with, the first winner being Sam Horsfield at 18 under, battling out Thomas Dietrich and Thomas Peters. The Belgian Bombers finished second and third that week, when the Wales Open played only at 8 under, for Romain Langasque, winning that event, which actually was kind of a mess down the stretch. He ran away with it a little bit early on. He shot a Sunday 65 when the other guys really had a chance to catch them late, but a couple water balls from Sebastian Soderberg and just other guys, Sami Välimäki not delivering late, making putts, left it open. But a huge difference in kind of those 2 weeks from a winning score. So excited to see where we find the mix of that. But this did provide, I think, some really good events, and it's just really a course that ball strikers should feast on.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was 8 under when Langasque won, it was 18 under when Horsfield won. So, like you say, they're two contrasting styles. If you look at the history of the Wales Open as opposed to the Celtic Classic, because they had to funk that Celtic Classic up, right? It was a new event. I don't quite know how they're going to go with it. I don't know if it's going to be back to what the Wales Open was like, where it's kind of 8 under wins, 10 under wins. But there was, even back in 2008 when it first went to the 2010 course, Scott Strange won at 22 under, Graham McDowell 15 under, which you don't really associate with Graham McDowell. He's more of a grinder, low score, high scoring events if you like. So I would say if you get to double digits under par, you're probably up there at least. It's very hard to make predictions on winning scores. We wouldn't have predicted 15 under for the Open Championship. It just happened to be there wasn't a breath of wind there, as I found out. I think it's one of those events where the style of our show, right, is to pretty much oppose the favourites. It pays off a lot of the time, but Matt Wallace, right, very quickly, because we're not going to bet on him. I don't think anyone goes to this golf tournament and goes, I'm afraid of Matt Wallace. Like, oh God, I've got to beat Matt Wallace this week. Like, I just don't think you do. I think Sam Horsfield has a little bit of that. I think he's got a bit of pedigree that's probably beyond some other guys. And then you've got Justin Harding and Aaron Rai. I like Justin Harding. I've put him up a couple of times. Aaron Rai is a good player. We're talking about an awful lot. None of them strike fear into me. And the selections that I've made, I think, are all very much a case of, yes, they may not have won yet, may not be the best pedigree in terms of winning, but I don't think they're going to be scared if they find themselves an opportunity.
Yeah, and I took a long, hard look at a few of those guys, really under 30 to 1, that, the numbers had really dwindled. Aaron Rai is specifically one that we were betting, 50 to 1 at the Scandinavian Mixed, not that long ago. And he played excellent last week at the Open Championship, was stroke behind Casey to be the low Brit of the week. I think over the low Englishman, I think for Rai, we've seen that trending form really transition, and he's deserving, I guess, in this field to be priced where it is, but I just can't be putting my money there. The other one, of course, Adrian Otegi has been also trending in a sense. He really gave us 54 holes, 2 weeks ago, where I thought he had a chance to cash that each way. The one that I really, really thought I'd be betting this week and did not anticipate a 28 to 33 was Matthew Jordan. Maybe it's particularly the success he had here, one of the events finishing third. It is also 3 straight top 20 finishes with good approach numbers. But man, that is like, a third of the number, we could have been betting on him not that long ago. So I've left all of that, off of my card. We'll be playing those guys on DraftKings that we mentioned. Justin Harding too, I think, is in great form, was up on there in the Open Championship board, but I have to take a step back before I'm betting any of these guys.
Yeah, when I put my shortlist together before the event came out, just looked at the entry list, Aaron Wright, Jordan Smith, Adrian Tagey, Matthew Jordan are just the guys that you'd fancy as your main runner, right? And I'm not surprised at their prices either. I mean, Jordan Smith is a little bit shorter than I expected. I expected Matthew Jordan to come in as he did because he's been a very popular player since he came on tour, pretty early success in terms of contention. But, it's outside of Rye, Smith and Jordan and Tagey maybe not so, but Jordan and Jordan Smith very much got question marks over their win equity. And you don't need that at 25-1. You need to be dead certain in them getting a win. My selections are going to start, and yours are going to start off at the 40-50-1 range. I'll just try and take the each way value, even if they haven't quite got the highest ceiling.
Yeah, that's really where, when I looked at myself, and really debated Matthew Jordan versus my first selection of Chan Kim, is where my card begins. Basically same odds, Chan, there were some 35s out there that, are intriguing, but even the 33s, if they were neck and neck, you're looking at somebody who's a 5-time winner on the Japan Tour, who has been in the mix at major championships, top 25 this year, top 15 in the past, somebody again who is ripping off top 10s like crazy on another tour, getting himself in the top 100 in the world. And now coming off a pretty decent Open Championship, he really struck the ball well. He's very, very long off the tee, can take advantage here with his ball striking. I just have to go with that pedigree that he has when those numbers are the same. So I absolutely think Chan Kim, this is the first time we've seen him on the European Tour, since we've really been, obviously this year, but, in the last few years, he has not teed it up over here. So I'm excited for him to take that opportunity, maybe launch himself into a tour card over here and make his way through the ranks outside of just the Japanese Golf Tour.
And that's what you have to think is a motivation, right? There's got to be a reason he's playing in the Wales Open this week. He's got to be trying to secure himself some playing rights. Like you say, 53rd last week, nothing really to shout about, but 23rd at the PGA Championship, top 15 at the Open Championship prior to that. Obviously has a certain pedigree of playing these Open Championship layouts. Celtic Manor isn't that, but it is, UK based. And like you say, he's got an opportunity now. We've spoken so many times about winning is winning and all different tours. And when guys haven't got it versus a guy that has, and it's in different level, but I wouldn't say the Japan Tour it's really hard to tell because we don't watch it week to week, but I imagine it's still quite competitive. You see different guys win all the time. We see a lot of guys put together second, third, fifth, but quite consistently. Ryo Ishikawa goes back over there an awful lot. Takumi Kanaya, who we've been speaking about, had some very early success there. I think they come out younger and better very quickly, but I think you can translate. I mean, you go right back to, we mentioned it last week, kind of in the Open Championship. Todd Hamilton, had a really, very good time in Japan, kind of went out of everybody's mind, winning one on the PGA Tour, took it over to majors. I'm not saying Chan Kim's going to do that, but it's just, you need to keep an eye out. We've already seen with Garrett Higo what he's done by going Sunshine Tour, or Big Easy Tour, Sunshine Tour, European Tour, Challenge Tour, PGA Tour. Like, it's just very, very, very quickly. And it's just a case of every time they go up a level, everyone goes, no, they can't do it at this level. And then we learn, don't we? I don't think the number is absolutely huge by any standards, but it's certainly good enough. And I think we're pretty much aligned on our next selection as well.
Yeah, you can go ahead and introduce it.
Yeah, so Danny Van Tonder, is a guy that you, to credit, have been putting up for an awful long time, purely, I think, based on his off the tee standards, big drive for the golf ball. That's going to be, it should be a factor here. One of the things that people said is it's not a bomber's course, but I think it certainly helps. And I think that the fact that you can score that way is a massive thing. I think that's what Sam Horsfield done that, Dietrich and Peters would have taken that approach as well. So you can attack it, and it certainly gives you the opportunity of risk reward around that back nine. So I think he's got a great chance. He's obviously tied 7th after 36 at the Open Championship. No big surprise, is it, to see him fall away? But he was second in tee to green. He was at the PGA Championship earlier on in the year. So we know the pedigree of this guy that we're talking about. 12th at the BMW International Open, before that kind of miscut back at the Irish Open and Scottish Open. He obviously won Kenya early on in the season. So I think for me, and why I've put in, as we go into my next pick as well afterwards, why I've gone with the other guys, I think Daniel Ventola is maybe a bit more volatile when you type of, he's kind of boom or bust. Maybe he's going to contend, maybe he's going to miss the cut. But I think his ceiling is so much higher than a lot of the players around him at this price range.
Yeah, and it's why we get value, I think, in the number, and it's probably why we'll end up getting value potentially on Guido if these miscuts, run together. Hopefully they do not. Hopefully he's got a gold medal in a couple of weeks. But these golfers that are spike weeks versus missing the cut, like it almost feels at times, when it's set up to them to be perfect, like it was for Van Tonder. When we played him, I think we put him up right after that PGA Championship the last time we saw him. Like it, just was something where it was almost too perfect, comes out, misses the cut, Scottish Open misses the cut. And then he's literally up there, like you mentioned, through 36 holes that is this going to happen? Is Van Tanner going to cash in each way? He's going to see himself in the mix. Those golfers that have the sporadicness, he easily could be 28 to 33. So, I view him higher, in my opinion, than like a Matthew Jordan type, who I love this week. It's just a different ceiling that exists. And I'll keep going to the well if they're going to give us these type of deep numbers. So,
I mean, really, what's the difference between him and Laurie Cantor in terms of upside is what I would say. I mean, not to pick on Laurie Cantor, but I think if Laurie Cantor was from America or South Africa or New Zealand or wherever, he would be the same price as Van Tonder. I think there's a very much a bias around English players. We get very, very excited about him very quickly. Obviously, he earned his stripes, hits the ball incredibly well, but for 20 to 1 and 18 to 1, I couldn't be going there.
Yeah, and Van Tonder's, the best player in this field off the tee. And if you can do it, attack it like the Belgium guys did, I absolutely think that can be used to his advantage, and why it brings me to my next selection. If you looked at another golfer who went on a stretch of golf that, I was shocked he almost didn't pull through with a better finish, and almost a victory, when Richard Manzo was in, what was it, about 3 week stretch that he found himself really in the thick of it. The finishes I don't think did it justice, where, his best finish was 12th at the Canary Islands Championship. He had played decent at the Tenerife the week before. And then again, kind of just slowly fell off the map when the course difficulties changed. The elements was a little bit different, where he really could take advantage of how good he is off of the tee. He's an exceptional driver of the golf ball. And we saw him come alive recently by open qualifying into the Open Championship. I really do like taking a look at those guys that, show a spike in golf, relatively unknown to anybody, that he was able to find himself in the Open Championship and then make the weekend. Again, it wasn't anything to be all that excited about, but for him, that's a huge deal and an opportunity where he's competing against the world's best. He hasn't been doing that. And, now has an opportunity to carry over that form, use that off the tee strength, where you see him, of sample size of golfers, relative to him. I mean, he is gaining, over 0.6 of a stroke, top 93 percentile in this field over the last calendar year, and a good amount of rounds. Was a winner on the Euro Pro Tour in 2019, had a couple second place finishes on the Challenge Tour. Actually, one of them would have been the European Tour, because that European Bank Open, right when we came back, was a combined event. But just a golfer that has extreme talent and that off the tee can, kind of play that Van Tonder-esque theme we're going with.
Yeah, I mean, Richard Mansell, as soon as we kind of decided between the two of us, or, separately, but, come together in the same way, that off the tee was going to be so important, Richard Mansell's the first guy that comes to mind, right? Because that is his skill set. The only slight weakness with him is that's almost where it ends. You have to wait for an iron week. You have to wait for a putting week, and trying to combine those two. It's not like Colin Morikawa, a completely different kind of fish, but he hits his irons well every single week. So when the putting clicks, he contends and wins. Richard Mansell needs to kind of figure 2 or 3 things out at the same time. But like you say, the upside is, and a bit like Danny Von Tonder, is that he's going to bomb it off the tee. I watched him at the Open Championship just this weekend, and you look at him off the tee and you're like, wow, that's incredible. Put his driving up there with the best I saw that day. And then you just wonder, when he gets down the hole and you haven't followed him, what quite went wrong. But he'll figure it out. Like you say, one on the Euro Pro, challenged on the earlier events coming out of the pandemic. I don't think it'll be long. It's just a case that I think he's getting to that level now where he's showing flashes, and now he's got to build some consistency and get some belief. But these guys can pop at any time.
Yep. And that's where, again, value in the number kind of comes for Mansell. But I'd pass it over to you. I think you're staying within the South African country. Oh, no, I guess that's a little bit longer. Let's talk about Will Besseling.
Yeah. So Will Besseling for me is a guy that we just talked about strokes gained off the tee. Not a bomber in the truest sense, but he's gained strokes in four of his last. He's been inside the top five, sorry, in four of his last five events in strokes gained off the tee, which is absolutely huge. He's got an 11th and a 53rd place finish here. His current form, he's got three top 20s in the last five events. Just very, very, very solid. Like I said at the start, I think there is maybe a lack of win equity there. And you're maybe looking for the place part, which is not something that really appealed to many people at 40 to 1. I don't suppose you'll be getting Jeff Feinberg betting that at 40 to 1, knowing he's not going to win. But look, I just think he's a really, really solid guy that really only needs to go and have a shot around to really get himself into winning contention. So for me, I like the profile of the player. I think I've put him up before. He was first in strokes gained around the green the last time he played as well. So if he can keep that chicken action going here at Celtic Manor, then I like his chances.
Yeah, he's just a talented, golfer who we've seen show up. I think a lot of consistency with Will Besseling. I think over on DraftKings this week, he's only $8,400, which I think is a very, very fair price to be paying for him. I think the remainder of kind of what I guess there's one golfer who's relatively kind of European tour based. For me, the next golfer that I would like to go into is somebody who we haven't seen on the European tour at all this year. A golfer who was ripping up the PGA Tour of Australasia. That's always difficult for me to talk about Australasia. But Bryden McPherson, or MacPherson, I think is how you pronounce the last name, a golfer who was, I think it was almost a decade ago now, where he won the amateur championship. I think that was 2011. So yeah, closing in, or now a decade ago. And he had a ton of talent as an amateur. Comes out and really just was never, getting through. I think he played in the Open, Masters, missed both those cuts right after that. Qualified for the Open Championship in 2014. Never really did anything there. Obviously missing the cut once again, but we saw a resurgence recently for him. This year, he played in 7 events. He had a fourth, 16th, first, 16th, second, first. So I was hoping, in a sense, we might see a little bit deeper of a number. But again, this course or the field strength that we're dealing with isn't all that strong. But to see him 80s, I think that's relatively, good enough for me to bite on when we see other amateurs or golfers who are making their pro debut. Like Matthias Schmid, who played well at the Open Championship, is at 70 to 1. We see Vincent Norman, who's now played well in a couple of events, in the 40s to 50s range. I think, again, pedigree on different, tours. We see again with McPherson, somebody who is just riding absolute hot form. I don't know what he has been doing the last couple of months. That PGA Tour of Australasia has not had events that he's played in realistically since, I think, the first week of April was that last time we saw him when he won. So I'm willing to go back to him, absolutely take that risk because the number is there. But again, it's just betting value versus what we've seen on the European Tour. If you dig into some of these guys, you see the talent is there with them.
Yeah, and for me, like you talk about his pedigree there, amateur champion, played at the University of Georgia, it's kind of, you look at, again, we've just spoken about guys winning and, winning just being winning, right? You've got the 2 wins that we spoke about on the PGA of Australasia this year, 3 wins in China, 2 in 2015, 1 in 2017, lost a playoff event in the Asian Tour as well in 2017. So things could very quickly look very different for him. And we see it, people get written off so quickly in golf. We're all so fickle that they come out at 19, they finish tied 6th in an event, and we think they're going to go on and be Ryder Cup stars, major champions, etc., etc. Then they miss a couple of cuts, and everyone forgets who they are. It'll be very simple. Like Vincent Norman misses a couple of cuts. If Matthias Schmid misses a couple of cuts in a few weeks, they'll just stop talking about him. They'll hang numbers on them. He looks like he's turned his game around. I mean, that PGA Tour of Australasia isn't the easiest to convert in terms of what does that form mean. We've seen a couple of PGA Tour guys went over there in Australia, haven't we, and not bring it over to PGA Tour. It's really hard to figure out. But everyone talks about Elvis Smiley as being a big, talent. He beat him last time out. But 30 years of age is nothing, is it? he's had a schooling of 10 years now. 2012 he turned professional. There's upside there. There's certainly upside. It is just finding it on the week, and like I say to you all the time, you kind of identify these players when they make these first starts for a little while. And maybe the number wasn't as big as we'd hoped, but if he puts in the performance you're expecting him to, which he very easily could, he's going to be 33 to 1 and 40 to 1. You're not going to have a chance. Really, you see those guys at the top of the market that we're passing on: Smith, Ategi, Jordan. That's the peak. They're never going to go shorter than 25 to 1. They'll be 66 to 1 and 80 to 1 as soon as a couple of guys come into the field. So you don't need to worry about that. Get the guys in that are slightly bigger, and we'll back them in.
Yep, completely agree. And was able to, I think there was odds on that last tournament he had over here. So I think it cashed like a 33 to 1 when he won that last event. So, I got to pay him back. Let's do it again. Yeah. Let's get an elevation that tour. So the PGA Tour of Australasia.
Don't turn into a Guido. He's love affair. Otherwise, he might get jealous.
No, I promise, Guido. I got you. But no, we won't see the Australasia Tour till August. So hopefully he's able to run some starts together. Because again, no status elsewhere. It leaves you kind of in a spot, even though he's had such good results this year. But staying off on the other different tours, you're going to Jacques Kruiswich, I believe is how you pronounce it. Was that okay?
I mean, I'm going to hash it up anyway. I always call him Jack Croyswick, but as we mentioned in the group chat earlier, we might not even be a real person. It's only something that's statistically in front of us that he might not even exist. But look, in all jokes aside, he's been second in approach over the last 15 weeks, 15th off the tee. Limited starts in that run, so it's not exactly like he's doing it every week. But we've seen the upside of him. In recent events on the European Tour, he was 14th here. At the Celtic Classic, shot 67, 65 at a weekend, just left himself way too much to do. He made the cut on the number. So just, you couldn't win from there really, the way that the scoring was. But that was enough for me to kind of get interested. Just the way he's been playing, last two starts on the Challenge Tour, 21st and 35th, nothing to write home about, but that backs up a 17th at the BMW International Open. And we saw him, didn't we? 5th at the Savannah, 5th at the Magic Kenya Open, 6th at the Players Championship. Again, all very homely for him, very comfortable. But then 7th in Austria, 19th, the 17th we just talked about BMW International Open. There's just signs that he's kind of ready to branch over now. Showed it here at the weekend last year. Going to have good vibes about it. So if he can keep those irons hot and get a quicker start, I really like Jack Croyswick. I don't know what number you got over there, but he's 66 to 1 here.
Yep, and that's where again his approach game continued success. Every time we see it, it's interesting with like him and Darren Fickard. Your boy Jason will appreciate that
He didn't like that,
No, but we see them. Honestly, they don't even always play that well when they get back to the Sunshine Tour, and then they just come and show up every single time when they're playing on the Big Boy Tour. So I'm excited for those guys to continue that form. And one-stop shop that we have been utilizing for years and years has been Mike Miller Sheets. And if for those that got a chance to see Mike's note today on Twitter, Smart Golf Bets, he is going to be hanging them up as he transitions his family back to New Zealand, which is so exciting for him. I know they have a pair of twins that are young, but Mike has been, an OG in this industry from day one. I think it's a lot of us use as a bouncing board for a lot of questions early on. How's he doing odds? How's he pulling all of this in, relative to what it is? A huge, resource for you as you got that going. So I think it's, a shout out to Mike and everything he has provided this entire industry, and, cheers to him and his family on their next step.
Yeah, if Mike didn't start, that is, there are other guys that do brilliant jobs out there in terms of spreadsheets and things, and the information we can get, we have resources that we know about, but certainly for him, that's how I started. That's how I started writing. I was very much a big fan of golf. I'd had some success betting on it, so I wanted to start writing about it. But having that all just compartmentalized into two very clear sheets certainly helps out. So yeah, as you say, wish Mike well, and let him identify another winner for us before he goes.
Yep, absolutely. And with that, I want us to transition, I think, I think we I have two more selections. I know you have one more. At the same time, too, make sure if you are a big audio listener and you want to subscribe to us on any of the podcast platforms, you can find us at European Tour or at Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix. You can find us at any of those different platforms. We had a ton of success last week. That was really cool to see all the views we had on YouTube for us, subscribing on our Mayo Media Network channel there. We set a record for us last week, which was really, really awesome. We appreciate the support. Let's continue it through the stretch of golf here. The next golfer for me, we saw the success of Marcel Siem last week at the Open Championship. I'm sure the crowds kind of with him were a lot of fun. You could always hear him fist pumping. I mean, he definitely set a record, higher than Guido on the fist bumps per hole ratio that he had going. The man bun was in full force, but for those that knew how close one of my favorite golfers from years ago was to claiming that spot in the Open Championship, Hugo Leon almost beat him at the Challenge Tour event that previous week to gain that spot into the Open Championship. Leon, and why I think, I'm going to be going back to him. He's available 150s, 200s, maybe if you're lucky for the week, is he was an absolute stripe show when he was playing on the European Tour. He was off the tee success, approach success, just couldn't putt. If you watch him putt, it is awful. It's really hard to watch. He's actually really bent over, like in this Matt Kuchar-esque with his legs really wide putting stance. But also what I love about Hugo Leon, I'm from Michigan, big baseball fan. He rocks the Tigers hat when he's out there on the field. So I had to make sure on the course, when I had to make sure I looked up why it was. He loves Jim Leland, the old manager of the Tigers. When I was growing up, Jim Leland just ripped cigs in the dugout all game long. He was a legendary manager. And those were the glory years for me for the Tigers. So Leon loved watching them play, got to see them when he came into the States a little bit. So he always rocks that Tigers hat. So you get him on the Challenge Tour, second place. He showed some flashes in rounds previous. He didn't play well in Germany when he had a European Tour start later, but again, continued success on the European Tour. Each way, at 150 to 1 pays quite handsome. So I'm going to be backing Leon this week.
Before we had Joaquin Neiman, Mito Pereira, we had Hugo Leon. I'm sure he inspired a generation, didn't he, in Chile? No, I don't think it was quite that much of an impact, but, like you say, just rock solid guy. He's had a bit of a renaissance. When you talk about how good he was back in the day on the European Tour, and you look at his OWGR, standings, and he's got his wins in Canada and places like that, but 5th and 7th on the European Tour in 2019 and 8th as well. He just, generally speaking, is showing some flashes over the last couple of years to suggest that he's really back in the game. Like you say, second to Marcel Siem. We've already seen and there's not a better example, is there, than what Marcel Siem did last week as to what a second or a first or a fifth or whatever on a Challenge Tour can mean. Form is form. I can't stress it enough. That's not to say that we're going to go and find a guy that played the local Kent Open to go and win the Open Championship, but maybe we'll do later on. You see guys and they're Challenge Tour contenders, and you think, okay, well, they're not going to do anything Open Championship. We had a good week, whatever. Must have seen fist bumps his way into top 20 finishes. So it's take the chance. It's a guy that you like. It's a guy that is hitting the ball well. He has been untested on the European Tour since Portugal Masters last year, 21st in that. What more do you want?
One thing I will always remember, so the Czech Masters where he finished that 5th, that was the week that Peters won. If you look at that leaderboard, Peters, Arnas, Schwab, EVR were all up there in that top 5. Just if I think of guys who are flushers on the European Tour when they have it, like that is that type of group. And that's what Hugo did that entire week. So I just have that really fond memory of the best of his game, and hopefully we can catch that and be early. Now, you had one more pick a little bit deeper here. I believe he played actually last week in the Open Championship too, didn't he?
He did. And he fired his way into Open qualifying. Gonzalo Fernandez Castaño has been a player that basically ruined his career by going to America. You have to take the chance. He has a few Twitter spats. He's very vocal on there of his opinions. This is very much for the old course form slappies in the sense that he has got 9th, 12th, 2nd and 8th place finishes in 4 starts here. Earlier in the season we put him up because he was 300 to 1 or whatever it was, and he was hitting the ball really, really well. Current form has completely abandoned him, which is why he's the number that he is on a course he absolutely loved. But look, he rolls into that Celtic manor, absolutely living the dream. Mid-40s, got to find his way back. If he's going to do it anytime soon, I would suggest it's going to be here. I wouldn't hasten to say go and chuck all the money you've got on him, but I think he's one to, I like to have one slightly down the leaderboard as or the betting board, if you like, because of what you're going to throw in there. And he was a guy that popped out to me. I kind of like these old man renaissances. We've had Richard Bland this year. Why not Gonzalo Fernandez Castaño?
Hey, I really thought Richard Bland was kind of going to do it. He had an epic story. I mean, a way he finished that second round to make it to the weekend. I think it was like 3 under through his final 5 holes to get to even par. Fortunately, the weekend didn't go his way. But yeah, these stories from one side of golf, we're seeing kind of a renaissance of guys later in their career, but also we are seeing more and more of these guys coming from the amateur game, coming from, really young, strong college or amateur pedigrees and translating. We say pedigree all the time. We've got to add another word to our vocabulary.
Yeah, we need to go to course, but yeah.
But seeing them just translate what they were doing into the next level. We see. I'm excited for Alex Fitzpatrick this week to make his European Tour debut. One of, if not the best amateur in the game right now, and commending the Cazoo Open for what they've put together on, the invitation list. They knocked it out of the park from who they've, invited to this event. My betting board is filled with about half of them from that standpoint. But there was an amateur this week that I am elated to be on. And I was hoping we snuck through the cracks long enough that the odds were so deep, and they are. He's literally the last guy in the field on most betting odds boards. And if that's not a sign for good luck, I'm not sure what.
Price the same as Andrew Pavan that may be playing with one arm at the moment.
Yes. But if we looked at it, so 1,500 to 1 for James Ashfield. Again, an amateur that literally nobody probably has ever heard of. He's ranked 657th in the world amateur golf rankings. Mayo tweeted the super bomb. This is our guy right here. And again, I have 1,500 shots for one of these to pay off. So we have a long time that we're going to be running this show before you come back to me and say, your super bombs haven't hit yet. So, but James Ashfield has gone just 4 weeks ago. He was at the amateur championship. So getting through all the way to the Final Four. And that is, one of the biggest amateur events that you can play overseas. Getting into the Final Four, he turns back that up, and then he finishes at 4th at the next amateur event. And then at the Cheshire Stroke Play Championship. Okay, we're getting deep here. I understand it. But it's his home course. That guy goes, out there, and he wins by 12 strokes. 12, just lights it up, absolutely dominates them. If you looked and saw one of his rounds that he puts together on here, I want to read it verbatim from the tweet out here. It says, most remarkable round of golf you have ever seen. Wales golf star James Ashfield goes +5 after 4 to -7 after 17. He opens double bogey, par, bogey, double bogey. And then he goes birdie, eagle, par, par, eagle, par, par, birdie, 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 eagle. And he just had to bogey the last. Why not? So he wins an amateur event.
For balance.
Yeah, he wins an amateur event by 12 2 weeks ago. And then he wins again last week. 2 weeks in a row, amateur victories. He is a home country star per this tweet that is out there, 1,500 to 1. Tommy, you don't need much from me to ask, to get on these long shots. But if we can wait until like maybe tomorrow afternoon till the top 20 markets come out, because if we flood the market now, he's going to be -110 to top 20. I've seen this story before. Mayo tweets it once, they take it off the board, and then it's down to, in each way if you're lucky. But, James Ashfield, 1,500 to 1. I am always willing to take these shots on these stories. Inform golf, form stays hot. So he's the super bomb of my week.
3,000 plus listeners last week, and a 1,500 to 1 winner. We'll soon be having that Magic Spoon cereal advert that Pat Mayo loves. And look, I'm all for having a bowl of fruity Magic Spoon cereal. So Look, that's the aim. That's how you know you've made it. The 1,500 to 1 winners are what gets you there. Um, I can't add anything. I mean, you've summed it all up. If I sat here and said anything on top of that, it would be completely fraudulent because I do not know that this man exists. I mean, we joked about Jack Croysfit not knowing he exists. He was 66 to 1. So this guy is 1,500 to 1. He's 657th in the world amateur rankings, but he's done that. As we've said, Cheshire Open. The only thing I know Cheshire about is the zoo. So I mean, if they've got an amateur star down there, then let's go down there and watch him. It's only about 5 hours away, so why not? Look, 1,500 to 1. Put a bow on it. What I would say, all joking apart, this is a European tour event, but I don't think there's. It's going to sound a bit harsh on the people at the top of the market. I don't think it's far removed from a challenge tour event in terms of depth. I think once you get outside the top 10, 15 players, those guys wouldn't look out of place trying to, contend in a challenge tour event. We've put guys up at Wrestling, we've put Van Ponda, these are guys that are playing mixed Sunshine Tour, Challenge Tour. Okay, you've got sort of players like Ross Fisher and people like putting out things, but who have we got here? Josh Geary's playing very, very well, Challenge Tour level.
Paul Peterson, yep.
Paul Peterson, exactly, coming back from Renaissance. That was the next one there. Guys that are just very, very solid at that second tier. Ryder McPherson, like you said, we don't know that he's not going to go on to different things. Julian Guerrero, it's just so many different people that are just very good at that second tier. And I think we're now going to see a guy, if he's going to make the step up and get to the professional ranks, this is a good test for him.
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't miss the cut on Friday. I spent 48 consecutive hours studying the entry list of the Cazoo Open. So I was ready for that moment. I could barely sleep last night waiting for James Ashfield number to come out on the market. So Tom, if you can review it for us, how's your betting card?
Yeah, so I'm going in Danny Van Tonder as an early pick there for me. It's I think he was 50 to 1 with you guys earlier on. So really nice there. Will Besseling at 40 to 1. Jack Croysfit, the well-known South African in comparison to your Welsh superstar, and Gonzalo Fernandez Castano. If there's any good vibes there for the course form, then he's the guy to go. Can't talk now apparently either.
Yes, so I'm Chan Kim 35 to 1, Daniel Van Tonder 50, Richard Mansell 75, Bryden McPherson 80. I was so excited to talk about Hugo and James Ashfield. I forgot about Jack Senior. He was up on that leaderboard through, 27 holes, start of the weekend a little bit, and he's done that time and time again. So Pat tweeted this out. I'm on Jack Senior, 90 to 1 as well. Hugo Leon, 150 to 1, and James Ashfield, 1,500 to 1. Take it to the bank, folks. Let's have a Cazoo Open. And guess what? Olympics next week. Did you see the news, Tom? Frankie Molinari had to pull out, which means Dubai roommates Guido Migliacci and Renato Peratore are teeing it up together in the Olympics. What a story.
It's a beautiful thing. And when they get gold and silver and take that back to Ryder Cups next year or the year after, it's going to be amazing, isn't it? Going to fly over to Rome. We're going to have ourselves a week. And it's all written in the stars, especially when James Ashfield wins this week.
Hey, amen to that. We'll have enough to definitely have a celebration.
We can get some of those NetJets flights and have some Magic Spoon on a ride over. It's the way of living the dream.
Amen. Well, good luck, everybody, this week. We appreciate your support. Let's continue to break records of listeners for us and enjoy. Everyone, good luck this week.